Okay, so moving down from here, sex inheritance is whereby the 23rd chromosomes, where I've got the X chromosome, I got the Y chromosome. So mutation can happen over in any of the chromosomes. So by definition, mutation is the change in the structure of a gene. So which means the genes inside any of these chromosomes can change, or it can be due to the number of chromosomes that are changed. So the most common one is Down syndrome, also known as trisomy 21. So tri means 3. So on chromosome number 21, trisomy 21, I will have 3 sets of chromosomes instead of the usual 2. Now, having one extra doesn't mean a good thing, because bear in mind that chromosomes consist of genes. Genes are then used to synthesize your proteins from your mRNA and tRNA during DNA transcription and translation. So by having additional chromosome, it is going to transcribe and translate for a lot more unnecessary things that are in the body system. Okay, so mutations, of course, can happen spontaneously. It happens almost on a daily occurrence when we are exposed to things like radiation or chemicals, even the mild ones. Okay, so these ones are most of the time our DNA is able to recover, and these are called mutagenic agents or mutations or mutagens. So not all mutations is a negative effect. So some mutations along the way, due to adaptation to the environment, do allow organisms to have favorable traits to survive better in the environments. Okay, so we will look at a couple of gene mutations over here. So albinism and sickle cell anemia are gene mutations. Okay, so albinism causes the lack of pigmentation, which is called melanin production. So the concentration of melanin determines the darkness of the skin. So people who are extremely fair, they have got low concentrations of melanin, and vice versa. So a mutation is caused in a recessive allele, so which means to say both parents must have the carrier gene. So I can have two perfectly normal skin pigmentation parents having an albino child because both the parents are carriers. So individuals with albinism, they do not have any skin pigmentation, so which means they're extremely white, the eyes look red. The redness of the eyes is mainly due to the lack of pigmentation in the color of the iris and the pupil. Subsequently, because of that lack of pigmentation, the redness is the blood vessels that are running around and behind the eyeball itself. So these people that are extremely sensitive to sunlight, more prone to skin cancer as well. So they need to put on dark eyeglasses, put on the sunblock, and so on and so forth. Okay. Sickle cell anemia, inherited as well. This is a gene mutation. Okay, so remember just now I just mentioned genes are responsible for synthesizing proteins, and hemoglobin that is present in the red blood cells is a type of protein. So in normal individuals, this particular gene, normal gene, produces hemoglobin A. Sickle cell hemoglobin S is produced. Okay, so there are variations in the type of sickle cell anemia. So I can have sickle cell anemia that is very high in concentrations. I can have them in medium concentrations or low concentrations. So these are adaptive advantages, which we will see in a while. So for individuals with high levels of sickle cells have a sickle shape. Okay, it doesn't have the biconcave shape of red blood cells. So they tend to clump, and when it clumps, it causes blockages in the blood vessel, so blood is unable to flow through. So as we can imagine, since your blood is unable to flow through freely, the plasma that carries nutrients, waste products, etc. is all unable to pass through properly. So eventually the patient gets insufficient oxygen, organ damage set in, and patients tend to die young. Okay, but in individuals that have only one copy of the sickle cell heterozygous, they have sickle cell trait. So this trait is then passed on generation to generation, and this is an advantage to people living in places like Africa that have got high malaria attack areas. So why? Because the malaria parasite is unable to grow and reproduce in sickle cell. So in such countries or in such continents, regions, people who are heterozygous and contain the sickle cell trait have a higher chance of surviving from malaria attacks compared to people who have got zero sickle cell trait, meaning to say 100% pure blood. Okay, so this is a good example whereby you have got advantages to having mutations. So chromosome mutation, Down syndrome trisomy 21. Okay, this one we took a look at just now. So during random fertilization, I will have one that is not properly separated out. Okay, so subsequently I end up with fertilization. If there is fertilization between these two, then the offspring will have three chromosomes of 21. But of course, if it's between this and this, also have the same thing. If it's between this and here, then the zygote is unable to survive. So having one extra one or having one lesser one does not help matters in the zygote itself. Okay, so organisms also have variation, two types of variation, continuous and discontinuous. So as the term suggests, continuous variation is whereby it is a bell curve. Okay, you don't have an exact region. So skin color, there's no definitive skin color tone. Everyone falls under a specific area and then it plots out. So same thing if it is height, there's no specific height of a whole group of population of only 150.1 and another group is 160.1. Okay, you do have people with 150.1 and 150.2 and so on and so forth. Okay, discontinuous, it is very, very distinctive. So you have it or you do not have it. So blood type, presence of dimple, okay, maybe for IQ, intelligence will all fall under continuous variation. Okay, so no distinct differences. So these are controlled by several genes influenced by the environment. So a person can have genes for height, but if he or she is not nourished at young or does not do a lot of impact sports, okay, that can also impact the height growth. So discontinuous is not influenced mainly by the environment. So these ones, things like for example blood type group, is a very controlled gene. So usually such genes, majority of them are thought to be vital for survival, and which is why they cannot be influenced by the environment. Okay, so next we look at natural selection. So natural selection is whereby the environment selects a specific trait that is passed on to the environment. So through this entire passage, what we can learn is at the beginning there are two different types of moth, the light color one and the dark color one. So subsequently, when the Industrial Revolution comes and there's a lot of smoke and pollution, the light color moths are able to stand out from the environment while the black color ones blend into the environment. So because of that, the white color ones will be picked up by predators and they'll be consumed. So eventually more and more blacks will be present while the light peppered moths will be lower in quantity. And in this sense, nature itself has selected that the black color variety is best able to survive, and they are then selected for the next few generations. So this is why it's known as adaptive radiation of a species. Okay, so artificial selection is different from this natural selection. So artificial selection itself is whereby places like hybridization of plants, inbreeding for animals. So hybridization, if let's say I have got a specific selection of fruits that I want, and these are maybe taste super sweet, looks nicer, able to survive certain conditions. So what farmers will do is that they will cross them continuously until you have the preferred combination. So if you Google how bananas look in the past versus how bananas look in modern days, you'll be surprised that bananas in the past are actually round, not a rod-like shape, and they have got seeds. Okay, really, really big seeds, unlike the small, tiny, itty ones that you can consume in modern days. So that is through hybridization. Now, inbreeding is similar process through cattle, so whereby they single offspring, so they end up with different breeds of cattle. Some that can produce milk, which are the milk Jersey cows, and then you also have cattle that are more towards for meat consumption. So of course, each of them will have their own issues. So inbreeding, if we look at it in terms of humans, which unfortunately do happen in certain societies, because of the very, very close proximity of the genes, there's a very low amount or low degree of genetic variation. So in other words, there's a very high chance that you have got offsprings that have got mutated genes, and these mutated genes are not for favorable traits. Often they lead to medical conditions and the offsprings do not survive as well. Okay, thank you for watching.